All the national parks in the hills and mountains above Marseille closed this Thursday. This after that fire at the start of the week that reached the northern end of the city, forced the closure of Marseille airport for a day. Rescuers working through the night again to douse the remaining embers from a blaze that destroyed dozens of homes.
It happened so quickly. We were evacuated. We didn't take anything. There's nothing left. Everything's dead.
Well, for more, we're joined from Marseille by Richard Assheton, journalist and international features writers for the Times of London, and from Chicago by Brian Sandberg, who is a climate science historian and is going to be going to the University of Aix-Marseille in the fall. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me begin with you, Richard. The worst has passed this time. The whole nation was shocked to see parts of Marseille under lockdown with the windows, people telling them to close the windows. Not so much shocked because there are brush fires in the hills above Marseille, but shocked because it was happening in the first week of July.
Sure, very early for the usual wildfire season. And what's happened is the winter here in the south of France was pretty wet. There was lots of rain, which allowed the brush to grow and the grass to grow long. And then we had several weeks of heat waves. And then we had wind, which picks up often here and can get up to high speeds. Firefighters talk about the 330, the 330s, and high winds combined with high temperatures and low humidity is exactly what came together in this instance. The Interior Minister of France, Bruno Retailleau, was in Marseille, and he has said that we should be in for a long hot summer in the south of France. So this may, as we're already seeing with several other fires breaking out this week, this may not be the end, far from it, of this summer of wildfires.
And your piece for the Times of London includes the fact that the damage includes an area immortalized by the Impressionist painters.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, what has been so shocking, of course, with, as you mentioned, with this fire is that it's come right to the gates of the city of Marseille. That seems to be happening, as we may touch on, more and more often. More cities are expanding into forest area, and that's creating risks. And what that meant is an area called L'Estaque, which is a historic port on the north of Marseille, which was immortalized by painters such as Georges Braque and Paul Cézanne, who painted the landscapes and ushered in, if you like, Cubist art into being through their depictions of these rather beautiful houses on the hillside. And as we've seen this week, those views have been dramatically altered. I mean, the hillside is blackened, and it's really striking to go up there and see how close people are living to areas that are now completely destroyed. It's being seen as a warning in some senses, because as one resident of a house whose courtyard was completely destroyed said to me, it could have been so much worse.
Brian Sandberg, your remit is the history of how climate has evolved in France. Let me ask you, as you prepare to pack your bags and head to over to where Richard is, what are your thoughts?
Well, I actually just got back from Marseille pretty recently to the United States, and I was in Marseille when they had the heat wave there, la canicule. And so I know that Marseille experiences wildfires every summer. In fact, I saw the planes filling up their water tanks to fight another fire while I was there. So I think the comparisons between places like Marseille and areas like Northern California and Western Canada, many other regions of the world that have this combination of dense forestation, hillsides and mountains, and hot air and drought, it's a formula for repeated disasters. And of course, as a historian, I'm interested in human reactions, social reactions to situations and environmental changes. And so every time we talk about a natural disaster, we need to remember that there are natural factors at work, environmental factors at work, but there are also many human and societal factors that are creating the situations that we then have to cope with.
The human factors, you're talking about the root causes. When you look at the events that have unfurled, in Marseille, complaints about not enough fire hydrants. I know you've had extreme weather over the United States with those deadly floods recently in Texas. And there it was, well, the National Weather Service didn't give us enough warning. How much do you blame human error?
Well, human error is definitely a factor in many disasters, and you really need some time to investigate the communications on the ground, and so you don't know immediately after a disaster how significantly human factors have played a role in any disaster, I think. My particular specialty as a historian is looking at how human societies responded to the last era of global cooling, which is a very interesting case known as the Little Ice Age in the 16th and 17th centuries. And in France and other parts of the world, human societies had to respond to climate change that they, of course, did not understand as being a global climate change going on. So I think that we can take some lessons from that in looking at how local, regional, and national governments look at climate change today and respond to disasters. And one lesson, I think, is to avoid thinking exclusively about causation. We can look at factors that contribute to disasters, and there doesn't have to be a smoking gun that one individual person or one individual institution made a mistake, and therefore they caused a disaster. But there can be a whole range of different factors, both environmental and human and societal, that are contributing to the worsening of many of these disasters.
And when it comes to those Texas floods, how much of the conversation is about what you just described, the causation?
There's definitely a political debate going on in the case of the Texas floods, and I'm actually from Austin, Texas, and grew up going to the Guadalupe River and inner tubing and kayaking and camping along it, so I'm very familiar with the area there. And I actually have two young cousins who rather dramatically escaped from camps there along the Guadalupe River in the last week. So thankfully they're okay, but there are hundreds of people who are dead and missing, and thousands of families that are really impacted by this disaster. So the political debate, I think, is something that needs to go on. I think there are some real questions about the National Weather Service in particular, and more broadly, the NOAA federal agency that oversees the National Weather Service. There have been layoffs by the Trump administration in both of those organizations. And the New York Times has reported, I think just last night or maybe this morning, that one of the key members of the National Weather Service, a meteorologist whose role in the Texas office was to engage with local officials in case of a disaster, had recently taken early retirement under pressure from the Trump administration. So that's New York Times reporting, and I'm not privy to any of the documentation of that, but I think it raises some real serious questions about particular human factors related to budget cuts and also anti-climate science positions of the Trump administration that may have contributed to this particular disaster.
Richard Assheton, did you ever think covering weather would be covering politics?
I guess that's the epoch that we've entered, isn't it? I mean, everything is politics, and weather encompasses everything. We've obviously seen horrific stories in the last few years in Turkey and Greece and Italy and elsewhere, and obviously in the United States. France, as the numbers show, is becoming closer to front and center of that story about wildfires and natural disasters. It's not going anywhere, as you might imagine. it's a political debate here too. The mayor of Marseille has had a kicking from some critics here who said he was sort of condescending in his attitude, if you like, praising the citizens of Marseille for doing as they were told and staying in their houses when in many cases, actually, what they possibly could have done was evacuated more quickly. The conversation here has turned to a large extent to how prepared the fire services are, whether they've got enough fire hydrants and aeroplanes at the moment. Macron has pledged to increase the number of those. He's behind on his targets. And the Prime Minister, François Picard, next week is updating Parliament in Paris on intended budget cuts. And he's being told by lots of people now that he needs to make sure that he safeguards the firefighters' budgets. And I should say one thing, I mean, there have been in France already this year almost 6,000 fires, and only 10 of them have spread, basically, as a basic rule of thumb. And whilst we can look at how these measures could be improved, that's not a bad rate, is it? It's just when it does go wrong, it goes horribly wrong, as we saw this week.
Right, it's only July 10th. Could be a long, hot summer. Richard Assheton, many thanks. I want to thank as well Brian Sandberg for being with us from Chicago. Stay with us. There's more to come. More news, plus the France 24 debate. And we'll be talking about, the new patrons of nuclear deterrence for Europe. Could they be Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer? We'll go over some of the big announcements that have been made from their joint press conference that's coming up in the debate.